So I'm at Toyota right now because Toyota just released to their dealers that they better get ready because they're going to start pounding them with inventory. But if you go across the country, most Toyota dealers look just like this one right here. Lots of empty spots. We've been able to get a few more models that were harder to get, like the Prius. But what most Toyota dealers have, and they have a problem with, are these Tacomas, are the Tundras. These are the only vehicles that they're able to really keep in stock. So I want to look into Toyota and to see if a manufacturer is actually going to do what it said it was going to do. But I want to dig in a little bit further. So that's why I wanted to talk to a Toyota manager today to see what he's seeing on the ground, more boots on the ground, more information. That's what I'm going to give you today.
All right, so Marcello, we know that right now Toyota is saying build more, sell more. So they're trying to get a lot more inventory to their Toyota dealers. At least that's what I'm reading, and that's what I'm hearing from Toyota. What are you seeing on the ground right now? Are you seeing them follow through with this? Are you getting more inventory to your store right now? What is it that you're seeing as far as inventory levels go?
Not so much, Brandon. For us here in Ontario, Canada, we haven't noticed anything in terms of a surplus or a decrease, for that matter, in any kind of available inventory. Hybrids are still one of those prickly fuzzies that you kind of have to wait in line to get. You got to do a factory order. Finding a hybrid Toyota on ground available to take home is quite rare. We do have some availability of things like non-hybrid Tacomas, non-hybrid, and some hybrid Toyota Tundra. But really, that's just about it. That sums up the most of our inventory.
And are you finding, I know when I'm looking at days of inventory and I'm looking at these different models, obviously Camry, very hard. Obviously Forerunner,
Yeah,
very hard right now. You're seeing Prius is difficult. Sienna,
yeah.
you can't find any. But we still see that day supply of inventory is still creeping up on the Tacoma and the Tundras. Are there specific models that you guys are dealing with that you can just move instantly? And what's the slower sellers right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I can say is with regards to models that we can move immediately, that kind of, so for Tundra, there's a lot of specifications you can get for us here in Canada, probably the same in the US, if not more. And I've got to say, if you want an immediate delivery of, let's say, a Toyota Tundra, we've got to look at something like an SR5 or standard off-road, TRD off-road, maybe even a limited, all non-hybrid. When you get into the hybrid equivalent, yeah, you can still take one home pretty fast or pick one up in stock, but you got to be a bit more open to configuration. So maybe it'll be a long box and not a short box. Maybe it won't be that exact color you want, but you could still find hybrid Tundras in stock. Toyota Tacomas, it's still a bit new for us that Toyota Tacoma got redesigned in 2024. We're still trying to understand the exact trend of what's popular and what's not. Of course, the TRDs and the SR5s, those always do well. So I'd imagine, depending on where you're located, you could find one of those in stock and readily available.
And if I'm sure there's going to be a lot of viewers out here that are watching this that they're trying to buy a Toyota at the moment, still very difficult to negotiate. Are there a few models you can give us that you can just say, look, you can negotiate a little bit, but it's going to be very, very tight on supply? I know, just off the top of my head, I know Sienna is one of those, but are there other models that Toyota runs that it's going to be very difficult for a consumer to get under MSRP? What is your tightest supply right now?
Yeah, so right now, tightest supply is definitely Toyota Sienna, definitely Toyota Grand Highlander, which specifically the hybrid trim, Camry hybrid. There's so many of them, to be honest, that are tight supply, at least for us here. RAV4 hybrid, RAV4 plug-in hybrid. For us here in Ontario, Canada, government pulled the $5,000 rebate away, which was applicable depending on how you made your purchase of your RAV plug-in hybrid. And we thought that by doing that, the sales would die or taper off, and that there would be inventory. But I still can't get in a timely fashion or readily available plug-in hybrid RAV4s. In terms of pricing and promotion stuff, we just rely on the manufacturer at this point. Whatever the manufacturer gives us in terms of a loyalty discount or an interest rate discount or whatever. We heavily rely on them to dictate what we should do with the pricing.
All right, and I want to ask you a question that you may or may not be able to answer, but I think I'm gonna word it in a way that you can answer it. So I'm are you in a bigger dealership group, or are you in a just one single small franchise?
I know our dealer group has north of 40 dealerships to their
Okay,
name.
so you talk to
Yeah.
other sales managers. Let me word it in this way. If you were to look at a vehicle that was coming in as a trade, what are some of the brands that you might not be as excited about trading for versus some that you would be trading for?
Yeah, good question, Brandon. And coming from yourself, I know you have a used car lot in the US. We don't love the idea of taking in a fully electric vehicle on trade. The depreciation on those is very heavy right now. The market's very shaky with those, whether it's a Tesla, whether it's an e-tron. So we're very careful with those. And yeah, it's a bit challenging to actually win one of those in on a trade-in, because unfortunately the customer usually owes more than what the vehicle is worth on those. Any kind of Chrysler product, any kind of Dodge product, Jeep Wranglers, stuff like that, we'd rather have, a Honda CRV in on trade-in, or a Nissan Rogue, or of course a RAV4, something of that nature.
All right, perfect. I must have worded that question exactly right then. So when
Yeah.
you're talking about, I heard you say like negative equity. That's one
Yeah.
thing that when I'm talking to salespeople here, when I'm talking to, I got a buddy who is one of the franchise managers at Nissan,
Okay.
and also one at GM. And what they've really laid out for me is that the amount of negative equity is like a disaster for some of these people that are coming in trying to get new vehicles, and they have no clue. Is that a
Yeah.
similar experience that you're seeing at your dealership, where you're getting people come in, they don't even understand how much negative equity they have? And are you having to turn away customers that maybe you wouldn't have had to a couple years ago just because of the amount of negative equity that's coming in the system right now?
Yeah. We're seeing more negative equity than we've seen in the past, couple of years, of course. We had a trend that was very upwards in the automotive market from 2021 to 2023, almost 24. And when I say upwards, I'm talking about resale pricing and trade-in values, right? That all went up. Well, now it's in a downward market in terms of, what's it called? I guess depreciation and market values. So yeah, customers that want to change their vehicle that picked up in those previous years, especially if they picked up a pre-owned vehicle, it's a bit more challenging for them to change it right now, because pre-owned market was huge in 2021, 2, and 3, because there was not many new cars to be had. So it drove up the price and the value and the resale price of these used cars. So trying to get out right now or trade in a pre-owned vehicle that you recently picked up 2 to 4 years ago, it's very tough. That and trading in a fully electric vehicle is a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. So I want you to pull out your crystal ball now, and let's not necessarily just look at Toyota, and let's not necessarily just look at where you are in Canada. Let's look at the market as a whole for a lot of these manufacturers. We know tariffs are here, right? So what do you feel like the market's going to look like 6 months from now? Do you feel like with price increases, are these manufacturers going to be able to push it onto the consumer, or do you feel like there's not any pricing power there, and a lot of these manufacturers are actually going to have to eat a lot of these price increases?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny how history kind of almost repeats itself. In 2020, all the automakers had to deal with COVID and all these issues, and the strong automakers really shined and kind of pulled through. And I think that's what's going to happen again now for this tariff conversation. I don't know how it will affect us here in Canada. There really has been no official statement with anything with regards to pricing yet. I think that the strong automakers will pull through and may not affect them at all, may actually turn around to their benefit for that matter. I think there's some brands like maybe Nissan or whoever's struggling right now that might do some more harm and damage to them. But I think companies like Toyota that are strong in terms of, recognition and overall trust from the customer, I think they will be just fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned Nissan. Are there other brands that you can say or are willing to talk about that you feel you're most concerned about? I know with Nissan, I mean, there was a few months ago they released, okay, we got like 12 months of cash left. Are there any
Yeah.
other brands that come to mind that you feel like are really just struggling right now, and they're going to, I mean, and the tariffs, they're not going to make anything better for them. What
Yeah.
brands do you put in that same kind of ballpark with Nissan?
I really think Tesla's in a funny spot right now. I'm not sure what will
Interesting.
happen with their, yeah, I'm not sure what will happen with their future. I mean, you probably heard it as well. You'll see it if you turn on the news or anything, that they're getting so much hate, and there's a lot of vandalism at their stores and on the vehicles in their lot. And we've had a surge in the amount of customers come in to appraise or try to trade in their. Actually, we just had a lady who traded in her Tesla and picked up a RAV4, if I'm not mistaken, and she was pleased to do so. I think Tesla is going to be, it's a company to watch, I think, to see what happens. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you're talking about depreciation. Just a little anecdote. So I've got a Tesla Model S. It's a 2019, and when it released, it was $100,000 car, and then
Wow.
I bought it like 7 months ago for 20 grand. So
See that?
that's normal
Wow.
cars don't do that. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's a big difference.
So tell me, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. So tell me
Yeah.
what it looked like on your sales floor and how the negotiation processes worked 2 years ago when everybody was chomping at the bit to buy any and everything, and we were still back on production versus what you see now. I know we still have tight inventory supply at Toyota, but you can at least get stuff, right? So what does that process look 2 years ago versus the probably a little bit more openness for at least negotiations now?
Yeah, you know what, Brandon, I've got to say at this point, really the only vehicles that we're having some kind of incentives on, I wouldn't even say negotiate, having some kind of incentives on is the stuff we can readily get. And again, that goes back to the 4x4 stuff, the Tundras, the Toyota Tacomas. For the most part, everything else we just rely on the manufacturer, and the conversation really, at least with us and locally, the conversation is more based off of ETA and timeline and how quickly the customer can get their hands on that vehicle rather than the price point. And it's been that way for past 4 or 5 years.
Now, when you're, I mean, when you're on the sales floor, you're doing stuff. How do you still feel like there's an eagerness from the consumer? Because when I go to, I go to a lot of these lots, Jeep, Dodge, and Ram. I look at Ford, and I can see a distinct difference with the amount of customers and the amount of salesman to customer interaction. And I can see that, okay, 2 years ago when I go on these lots and do a lot of these videos, I wouldn't even have a salesperson approach me. I could go anywhere and everywhere, and they wouldn't even get out of their chair because they knew that, okay, if I walked in the door, I was going to buy a car. That's just the way that it worked 2 years ago. But now I'm actually getting salespeople approach me when I'm going out to these lots and doing a lot of these videos. Have you seen I'm sure your sales staff is the best in the world, but have you seen an eagerness that has increased from your sales staff just because, okay, now we do have ready supply of inventory, and then maybe you have consumers that are less willing to spend their money just because of all the uncertainty that we've got going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, not so much, to be honest. I think our sales team is just a bit more careful with how they deal with that customer in terms of, making sure they get the vehicle on time and making sure they service the customer properly. In terms of eagerness, in the sense where, like, we're at a point right now where we have to hire more sales reps, because there's more often times than not, especially on Saturdays. Saturdays are typically busy for us. I'm sure it is for everyone in the States as well in the automotive industry. Saturdays, it comes to times when we don't have enough sales reps available to deal with the customers. And we're in an auto mall, and I think that we are one of the few dealers that have this concern and issue. Like Toyota right now is just in a buzzing state right now. They have a lot going for them. I think the automotive world is at a crossroads between, switching over from V6, V8 combustion engines to full EV, but now retracting back into like the hybrid territory. And I think Toyota does hybrid the best. Like we've been doing it since the 90s with the first Prius, right? I mentioned on so many of my videos, and I know it sounds a bit biased, but I've been with Toyota for so long, and I've seen the competition, hybrid CRVs and all these other manufacturers come through with hybrids, and I don't think anyone can touch Toyota's technology. So we're buzzing. We have a lot of models that are in super high demand, and we can't get them fast enough.
Well, that is a very corporate answer, and I applaud you, sir. Okay. Well, let me see if I can get just a little bit out of you. I'll push you just a little bit. Overall, just looking at the market, what is your biggest concern for the market going forward? Even if it doesn't happen, what is the thing that you're worried about most that could turn this market in the wrong way?
Yeah, I guess my biggest concern would be, what effect, tariffs would have on the end user, being really the dealer, and then from the dealer, the customer, because you gotta, if we're buying the vehicles from the manufacturer, they're getting wholesale to us at thousands of dollars more. It's going to drive up the MSRP. Customers have to pay more on their payment. Other than that, I would say like not much in terms of a concern. I think it might work to some customers' favor if the tariffs do affect the new car prices even slightly, like 10, 20, whatever percent. I think that would drive up the used car prices. And we all know what happens when you drive up the used car prices, you drive up the trade-in values, more customers can trade in their cars and get into newer vehicles. So it'll keep the cycle going. It's just, what's that threshold like, right? What's really going to be the price increase, if any? That's one thing we got to watch out for.
I can tell you one thing that I'm frustrated with you and every other franchise dealer out there is that over the last 3 years, you guys have figured out that you can make I about said a bad word, a lot of money on high quality used cars. So what I have experienced is that a lot of franchise dealers now are even tearing down some of the like the stuff that they used to send to auctions. They're not sending it anymore. They're keeping it for themselves. Is that something that you guys are doing? And should I be yelling at you about that too?
No. I mean, we do wholesale quite a few vehicles. We put through probably about close to 300 vehicles last month in terms of deliveries between new and pre-owned. And by saying that, we ended up to put through maybe 40 or 50 through wholesale. So we're not keeping everything. I mean, we're in a position where we'll always do a deal with a trade-in if it makes sense. Always the first route of action is to try to keep that trade-in for retail so we can, recondition it, get some money going into service, get some money going into sales and sell the vehicle. But then, there's times when the deal's tight and we can't do that, and we've got to look at other ways of acquiring that trade-in, whether it's wholesale or an outside buyer or whatever the case is. So no, we're still open to, using the wholesale avenue. And I think a lot of stores that have an open mind are the same way.
Yeah. So with inventory being more available, I'm sure you probably have another Toyota store that's within 50 miles of you guys. I don't know if it works that way in Canada, but I know in the US there's 3 or 4 Toyota stores within 50-mile radius. With that, if that's the case with you knowing that other Toyota stores are going to have inventory, are you less likely to have a customer walk over a couple points, or let's say a few $100? I know 2 years ago, if you're a Toyota dealer, you could let a customer walk for $200 and it wouldn't even matter. If I'm trying to give advice to the other side, the consumer, what should I be saying to a consumer that wants to go in and find the best deal if they're shopping across multiple Toyota dealers? Is MSRP a good deal still, or should we be trying to push dealers a little bit right now?
Yeah, I know it really is. I mean, for the Toyota sake, if you're grabbing the vehicle for the suggested retail price, in terms of the value proposition, in terms of not paying for stuff you don't need or want, and getting a valid timeline from the dealer or from your salesperson, at this point in the game, I think you're doing good if you can get those things. Yeah, we're not going to let a customer walk if they want, an accessory, or if they're asking us for, tinted windows or cargo liner or a few $100. I mean, that's kind of silly to let the deal walk for that. But again, it does matter what type of vehicle we're looking at. If it's a vehicle that we have that's readily available, because see, for us, the atmosphere is a bit different. You're coming in to place a factory order, essentially. It's not like you're coming in to pick out your exact model on the floor and say, hey, can you configure it for me? I want it like this, and this, and give me that. It's just the whole buying cycle kind of changed for us a bit in the past couple of years. And unless we get that surge or surplus of inventory, or the market really tanks and there's less customers out there and more vehicles, I think it's going to end up staying that way. Customers will come in, order a RAV4 hybrid, and then months and months later, we'll have to sit down again and revisit the whole transaction. Be like, okay, how's your credit now? Are you still going to finance it? Oh, you have a trade-in now. Okay. Or you want it to go under your wife's name. Like, it's just like I started selling in 2008, and it was very different in 2008 than what it is now. And I think there's so many factors that just contributed to that. That's out of the dealers. Like, it's out of our hands. It's out of our control. It's bigger than us.
So one thing I have heard you talk quite a bit about, and I think that the hybrids are even more popular in Canada than they are here. Which
Okay.
hybrids still very, very, very popular, but I think there's more of a
Yeah.
push for them in Canada than there is here in the U.S. But that's one of your specialties, right? So you
Yeah.
even have an ebook to be able to show people what maintenance,
Yeah.
what you should look for buying. So can you tell me about that a little bit?
Yeah, I get a lot of questions and emails and comments on so many different topics related to hybrid, and I can only put out so many videos on the hybrid technology and how to care for it. So I did put together an ebook. I'll allow you. You can put the link in the description if you like, Brandon. It's available. You could purchase it, and it basically explains the ins and outs of the hybrid system, how it works, how to care for it, how to improve efficiency. So many questions. I know hybrid's still new to a lot of consumers, so hopefully the ebook could help a lot of people.
Yeah. So we're going to put that link down in the description below for you. Go check it out. Marcello, thank you for having this discussion with me. Thank you guys for being here, and I hope you have a great day, man.